Hello and welcome to my Revenge of the Sith mega review, where we don't just review the movie itself, but everything that went into making the movie what it was. And this is a film that the majority of people consider to be the best of the prequels. And after researching the behind the scenes stuff, and in particular some of the deleted scenes, I really do think that George Lucas absolutely poured his heart and his soul into this one. He often gets criticism for laziness with episodes 1 and 2, but this one, I believe he really tried. Apologies if you hear weird sounds in the background, there's actually a thunderstorm going on right now. I can't do much about that, but the show must go on. This movie was originally about 4 hours long. 4 hours long.
4 hours!
The opening scene with the space battle and then Obi-Wan and Anakin in Grievous's ship to the crash landing, all of that went for over an hour in George Lucas's original script. So needless to say, they had to cut a lot of stuff out in order to get it down to movie length. There was essentially 2 movies worth of stuff here. And in this age where we've got ultimate cuts of like Batman vs Superman and different cuts of like Wolverine, I wouldn't mind seeing the full 4 hours of what this was originally slated to be. That would be really interesting. George Lucas continues to be the writer, director, executive producer, and financer all at the same time. Definitely a lot to take on. But this movie also signifies an end of the Fox Studios' domination over Star Wars. Because Fox will always own A New Hope. Till the end of time, they will always own it. But for Empire, Return, and these prequel movies, all of the rights to them will shift over to Disney in 2020. So Revenge of the Sith was pretty much their last hurrah riding the George Lucas bandwagon. There's more visual effects here in Revenge of the Sith than Phantom Menace and Attack of the Clones combined. It has the highest body count of all of the Star Wars movies, 171 deaths. If we count implied deaths, then Force Awakens is right out in front because they blew up multiple planets. So this is a big, special effects heavy, some might say bloated work of art from George Lucas, but it's definitely much more of a mixed bag than any of the other movies. Let's first take a look at behind the scenes. God damn it, the rain. Hear that? Thunderstorm? Damn it. In the Mustafar fight, they filmed actual volcanic eruptions from a volcano in Italy and digitally inserted it into the background of the fight.
Mount Etna exploded. And I got a call from George over the weekend. He said, listen, this footage is extraordinary. You gotta get on the plane. So I grabbed Ron Fricke, wonderful cameraman, and we rushed off to Italy. And within 24 hours, we actually got there and we started filming for a week the total extraordinary footage that we have on Mustafar of the volcano planet literally exploding in front of our eyes.
That is amazing. It really is. A lot of people give George Lucas a lot of flack for all his CGI dependence, but that's the correct way to use digital effects. And it looks fantastic. Just knowing that all those eruptions you see, well, not all of them, but most of them, just adds so much more to the sequence. In the end credits, we have Michael Smith credited as Jabba the Hutt. Apparently Michael was the guy who got everyone coffee. We know how much George Lucas loves his coffee. And Jabba the Hutt is a cafe from an episode of The Simpsons. With General Grievous, Gary Oldman was actually in line to voice the character, but he backed out because of some weird thing where he didn't like they were using actors that weren't part of the Screen Actors Guild. What is that, some kind of union or something for actors? Who cares? I don't know, it just sounds weird to me, but a Gary Oldman General Grievous would have been interesting to hear.
I got every lawman in 3 fucking states up my ass. The last thing I need is some hard-ass crackers pulling a damn blood feud on me. Now get the sucker shit out of here!
Also, with Grievous in the expanded universe, it's explained that he actually was a little bit force sensitive. He didn't just know how to wield a saber, he was actually force sensitive, and this is because he actually got a blood transfusion from Master Cypher Dyas. Yes, the same guy from Attack of the Clones who apparently ordered the clones. because he apparently had a very high midichlorian count, so I guess Grievous got midichlorians transfused into him. Really glad they didn't include that in the movies, because that just opens up this whole problem of if you can just get the Force literally through a blood transfusion. Oh boy, and let's just be glad that didn't make it into the film. But a very early version of Grievous, he didn't look anything like what he did now. He was actually supposed to be a small child sitting in a floating chair shadowed by 2 IG-88 droids. But that was scrapped for being a terrible idea because Grievous was supposed to be menacing. It's hard to make a kid feel menacing. Although, I don't know, a lot of horror movies do succeed in having creepy kids. And Yoda is about the size of a little kid, so maybe it could have worked. But I guess then you'd have to have Obi-Wan Kenobi shooting a small child repeatedly in the heart. The Millennium Falcon does appear in the movie. Some say it's just another ship of similar design, but no, that definitely is the Millennium Falcon. The big Wookiee battle, that had been in the works for a long time. That went all the way back to Episode 4 A New Hope. It was originally supposed to be a bunch of Wookiees overrunning an Imperial outpost in that, but of course it didn't make it into the movie, so it eventually got shifted to Return of the Jedi with Ewoks rather than Wookiees. It still would have been better with Wookiees, I'm just saying. But we eventually got a Wookiee battle here, which seems oddly disconnected from the rest of the movie. In the big space battle here at the beginning, the animators literally threw in a kitchen sink because they were told, we're going to throw everything in here except the kitchen sink. So they said we can go one step further and actually include a kitchen sink. Good job, guys.
Number 3, the plot.
So the plot sort of revolves around the end of the Clone War and this multi-layered, multi-sided deception going on where the Jedis don't trust Chancellor Palpatine and they're worried that he's trying to take over, but then Palpatine is saying he doesn't trust the Jedis and he's worried that they're trying to take over, and Anakin's kind of stuck in the middle between these two sides, and he's also trying to save Padme's life from these premonitions of her dying in pregnancy. So there's a lot of stuff going on, some of it good, some of it bad. Some of the good stuff that I really like is Obi-Wan and Anakin's friendship in this. We finally get to see their friendship. They actually like each other. They joke around and have a bit of fun on Grievous's ship at the beginning of the movie.
Well, R2 has been...
No loose wire jokes.
Did I say anything?
He's trying.
I didn't say anything.
There's even a scene where Anakin actually apologizes for being an arrogant jerk in the last movie.
I haven't been very appreciative of your training. I've been arrogant, and I apologize. I've just been so frustrated with the Council.
You are strong and wise, Anakin, and I am very proud of you. I have trained you since you were a small boy. I have taught you everything I know.
Obi-Wan, may the Force be with you.
Goodbye, old friend. May the Force be with you.
You really buy them as being friends. Finally, after 3 movies, we finally get them as friends. And it does set up for their big battle at the end, and it makes it more tragic. And there's the really dramatic John Williams music going on, and it gives you the feels. The feels, that's good, you need the feels. The Emperor, as always, is fantastic. Ian McDiarmid does a fantastic job, and he obviously relishes every moment where he can go full Emperor and full just madness. And he's clearly enjoying himself. It's very hard not to enjoy watching him when you see how much fun he is having. But he also nails it at other moments where he's being more subtle, more manipulative. Such as my favorite scene in the whole movie, the opera scene where he tells him about the legend of Darth Plagueis the Wise.
Did you ever hear the tragedy of Darth Plagueis the Wise?
No.
I thought not. It's not a story the Jedi would tell you. It's a Sith legend.
This scene is so good, and I love it because in other dialogue bits, people just say whatever they're thinking right away. But in this, Palpatine chooses to tell him a story that relates to his experience at this moment, and he allows Anakin to connect the dots of, oh, I could use this power to help Padme.
Is it possible to learn this power?
Not from a Jedi.
See, that's much more like how I think Palpatine should be. Just manipulative, the puppet master, and Ian McDiarmid does such a great job. One Sidious sequence I could have done without, though, is the whole Sidious versus Yoda fight. Even though, going back as far as I've been a Star Wars fan, ever since the original movies, I've always kind of wondered what Yoda versus the Emperor would be like. For some reason, just seeing it on screen in Revenge of the Sith, it just feels very anticlimactic, and it doesn't feel important enough. And I think it also serves to demystify both of them in a way. I don't know, it's just cheap. It's a cheap showdown between them. It should be better than that, or perhaps just don't do it at all. I would have been happy if they just left it out of the film, but something they did leave out of the film that I definitely wanted them to include was an entire subplot of the formation of the Rebel Alliance. Why was this left out of the movie? This is so important. The only thing I can think of is that Lucas was responding to our complaints in the previous movies about too much political stuff, too much meetings, and all the rest of that. But political meetings about the formation of the Rebel Alliance, I want to see that. That's, if you're going to give us political meetings, give us meetings of that, of the Rebel Alliance being formed. That's really important. And it was so well done in these scenes. It's served to set up stuff later on, which is done much better once you realize what these deleted scenes are. Look, here's the situation. So Bail Organa is putting together the genesis of the Rebels, and it's got Padme, it's got Mon Mothma, who, by the way, the actress who played Mon Mothma in this, even though it was cut from Revenge of the Sith, she's now playing Mon Mothma in Rogue One, which is great. I'm looking forward to seeing her again. And an Aboriginal dude.
We have so many senators on our side. Surely that will persuade the Chancellor.
Yeah, some accents just don't work in movies, and Aboriginal Australian is definitely one of them. But in this deleted scene, they all agree that if they're going to lay the groundwork for this organisation, they can't tell anyone what they're doing, not even their own family members.
And so we will not discuss this with anyone, without everyone in this group agreeing.
That means those closest to you, even family. No one can be told.
And you can see Padme wants to tell Anakin, but of course she can't. So this deleted scene adds so much more to a scene that later made it into the movie, of where she is talking to Anakin and she's subtly putting the feelers out to try to see how he would react to this news of her forming a Rebel Alliance, but she sees from his reaction, probably not a good idea to bring it up with him just yet.
Have you ever considered that we may be on the wrong side?
What do you mean?
What if the democracy we thought we were serving no longer exists, and the Republic has become the very evil we've been fighting to destroy?
I don't believe that. And you're sounding like a separatist.
Then followed by a deleted scene where all of these politicians were going to confront Palpatine about some of his unconstitutional business or whatever. And after they leave, Palpatine says, she's hiding something. Padme's hiding something. What is it, Anakin? Anakin's like, I don't know. I have no idea. And Palpatine kind of gets frustrated and takes a shot at him.
Senator Amidala is hiding something. I can see it in her eyes.
I'm sure you're mistaken.
I'm surprised your Jedi insights are not more sensitive to such things.
I simply don't sense betrayal in Senator Amidala.
But you don't seem to want to admit it. There is much conflict in you, Anakin.
But see, now, in this deleted scene, the seed is planted in Anakin's mind that Padme is hiding something, that she's up to something, that she's doing something that she's not telling him about, which affects later scenes, which did make it in the movie, where he's kind of hostile and a little bit suspicious of her. And all of this is setting up what happens on Mustafar when the two of them meet there. When he sees Obi-Wan and he freaks out and he's like, you brought him here to kill me, blah, blah, blah. When you see this in context of all of the deleted scenes that happened before it, you understand that he knew she was up to something. He knew something was going on. So when he sees him, he's like, this is what you were planning? You were going to overthrow the Chancellor from the very beginning, and you even brought him here to kill me? When you see it in context of the deleted scenes, it makes so much more sense why he would react that way. But with all those scenes cut, he just looks like a lunatic for suddenly assuming that. So I really wish these scenes had made it into the final cut of the movie, because not only does it set up the Rebel Alliance, gives us familiar characters that we know, but it helps Anakin's story and Padme's story as well. Maybe they could have tightened this up by shortening other moments, or maybe taking the Wookiee battle on Kashyyyk and combining it with Obi-Wan raiding General Grievous's compound, put those two stories together, maybe have them both happening on the same planet, and that would free up time to put in this subplot. And it seems that that was on the table earlier on. There was also more storyline which didn't make it into the end movie, where a 10-year-old Han Solo is on Kashyyyk being raised by Chewbacca because Han Solo is an orphan, and the two of them are the ones that lead Obi-Wan to Grievous's base. They know where it is. So had that happened, there would have been a 10-year-old Han Solo in the movie, but probably good thing they left it out, because for one thing, introducing that would totally change the dynamic between Han Solo and Chewie, where in the original series it seems like they're just mates, and maybe that Han Solo is kind of more of the boss than Chewie. But if you introduce that Chewie raised Han Solo as an orphan, Chewie's kind of like his dad then, and that changes the whole dynamic. Also, I don't think anybody wanted to see a 10-year-old Han Solo, so probably better they didn't include that. So Revenge of the Sith is more of a mixed bag than the other two prequels are. There's a lot of really good stuff, and there's a lot of really cheesy, dumb, and poorly done stuff. But I think that the good stuff, the stuff that does work, as well as some of the deleted scenes that could have worked even more, they're enough to overcome the dumb stuff in this. So I think this movie's generally accepted status as being the best of the prequel trilogy is not unfounded. I think it does deserve it. And I'll say that as I have watched Revenge of the Sith a couple more times in preparing this, I do find myself enjoying it more and more and noticing more subtle character moments. Okay, so we said we'd do it. Here we are, Darth Jar Jar theory. For anyone who doesn't know this theory yet, here's a quick overview of what it is. So the theory is that Jar Jar is like a reverse version of Yoda from The Empire Strikes Back. You remember in that first time that Luke meets Yoda, he kinda acts like a bit of an idiot, put him off his guard and to fly under the radar so that he doesn't suspect that he's actually way more powerful than that.
I'm looking for someone.
Looking? Found someone you have, I would say.
Right.
This theory puts forth that Jar Jar is actually a Sith Lord who acts like a dumbass to trick everyone into trusting him so they never suspect him. The theory puts forth that his style of fighting is a bit like the Drunken Fist martial arts style.
Zi-Quan, or Drunken Fist, uses stumbling and staggering as body momentum to be deceptive, unpredictable, and to confuse opponents. And Jar Jar mysteriously is extremely efficient in killing every single time that he is in danger. And as Obi-Wan told us, there is no such thing as luck.
In my experience, there's no such thing as luck.
There are moments as well where he seems to be mouthing words that other characters are saying, the implication being that he's somehow influencing them to say these things or make certain decisions at certain moments. He even sometimes uses hand gestures very reminiscent to the Jedi mind trick during key moments where people make decisions. It's also pointed out that pretty much every droid does not trust him.
In fact, every droid Jar Jar encounters seems to hate him and find him suspicious. And for good reason, because Jar Jar's mind control doesn't work on droids.
You know, I find that Jar Jar creature to be a little odd. Quite right. He's very odd indeed.
So if this theory is true and it's something that George Lucas wanted to include, that means that Jar Jar would have either secretly been another apprentice of Palpatine, or maybe even Palpatine was his apprentice. They are both from Naboo, so they could have connections going way back, and the actor who did the motion capture for Jar Jar did actually put forth a voice out there of what this Darth Jar Jar might sound like.
Darth Jar Jar would probably have a different voice, wouldn't he? He'd be probably, it would be the whole Jar Jar voice would be the facade.
Your feeble skills are no match for the power of the dark side.
Me personally, while I find this theory really interesting and I really enjoy it, I don't know if I totally buy it. Reason being is because if this was something that Lucas really did plan but he had to abandon it for later movies because of the reaction to the character in Phantom Menace, that means any evidence of this would only be found in the Phantom Menace, not any of the other movies. And if you reverse engineer sort of the villain scheme with the Darth Jar Jar theory in mind, it doesn't really work out. If Jar Jar was a Sith, you would have to presume assume that since the Chancellor sent these two Jedis to put an end to the blockade of Naboo, Jar Jar was sent there to intercept the Jedis and prevent them from ending the blockade, because they wanted to use this whole situation so that Palpatine could become Chancellor. And sure, you can make the argument that later on when they meet Anakin, Jar Jar and Palpatine's attention is then shifted onto that rather than fulfilling this mission, but that still doesn't explain all the opportunities before that where Jar Jar could have easily made sure that the Queen didn't escape, or could have even just killed both of the Jedis when their backs were turned. If some of the versions of this theory are true, saying that he's maybe even more powerful than Palpatine, he should have been able to do that quite easily. I guess it is possible though that you could say maybe he's kind of like an Inquisitor. You remember those guys where they have a little bit of the dark side ability, but they're mostly not on the same level as Jedi and Sith? That would probably then explain why Jar Jar doesn't openly just try to kill the Jedi when their backs are turned, why he's still sort of playing along and feels the need to hide like this. But it's certainly a very interesting theory, and if Snoke turns out to be Jar Jar, yeah, that would be very interesting. So as you guys know, each week you guys get to vote on what video I will do next week. There's two different videos I got in mind, based off stuff you guys have said in the comments you'd like to see. One, of course, is Flash, how to do it. A lot of you guys are big DC fans, big Flash fans, and that movie definitely is in the works. They are putting it together as we speak, so I could do one of them. Or we do have Spider-Man Homecoming just around the corner now, so it might be a good time to start doing a mega review of some of the Spider-Man movies, either the Sam Raimi movies, or perhaps the two Amazing Spider-Man movies. I'll leave which one up to you guys in the comment section. But vote for which one you want. There's a card right here in the top right corner. It works on phones and iPads as well. You can vote through that. And whichever one wins, that's what I'll do next week. And if the vote is like really close, which I'm thinking it might possibly be because both of these are popular choices, I still will probably do both. I'll just do whichever one wins first. So don't worry if the one that you pick doesn't win. It doesn't mean I won't still do it later on. Okay, back to it. The prequels have always been more than the sum of their parts. Whether you loved these, whether you hated these, it's always equaled more to us than just 3 movies, because this is Star Wars, and Star Wars means something to all of us. So for many of us, the prequels either represent the smashing of our childhood dreams or our very first introduction into the franchise. Either way, there's no way we can overstep how important the prequels are to all of us as fans. And I'm sure there will be mega reviews of like the original trilogy and Force Awakens later on down the track, but in the meantime you can click right here and check out any of the other mega reviews I've done. These also work on iPad and iPhone as well, and until next time I will see you guys in the comments.